Okay, top of the hour. Thank you all for joining us for this panel on the AE-SE relationship. My name is Garrett Erickson. I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Consensus, and I will be your moderator and your guide for this session. DemoFest is presented by Consensus. Consensus is intelligent demo automation software that helps scale pre-sales with interactive video demos and interactive product tours. You can learn more at goconsensus.com, or you can view our automated micro demo at the link that's in the Docs tab at the right of your screen. While Consensus is proud to provide DemoFest for free to all attendees, we'd like to invite each of you to learn about and donate to our company's humanitarian organizations if you can. You can learn more about that by visiting DemoFest Gives Back booth in the virtual expo hall in the booths tab. There's also a link to our organizations in the Docs tab on the right of your screen. The link is goconsensus.com/donate. If you enjoy DemoFest virtually, you really should check out our community on Discord. We started that over this last year, and we're excited to continue inviting people to join. In our Discord community, you can connect with speakers like our panel today. You can get exclusive access to content, events where the conversation will continue long after DemoFest has ended. So we encourage you all to join and invite others to be there as well. So you can also find that community link in the docs where you're going to find a lot of stuff. This panel will be memorable and really impactful based on your guys' participation. So on the right side of your console, you're going to see a few different ways to interact with the in the session. The chat function will allow you to engage with us as well as the other attendees throughout the session. Throughout other sessions, this one doesn't have any, but throughout other sessions, you may see polls. So you're going to be encouraged to participate in those throughout the day. So that's over there. This panel is, again, driven by your questions, so please go ahead and take the time to go to the Q&A box and start putting things there. You can find that on the right side as well. If at any time you are having technical difficulties, just go ahead and click the gear sign at the bottom of your screen, and there you'll see a help document that's going to troubleshoot a lot of the common issues. All right, and now I'm pleased to introduce our panelists. So today we have with us Julia Klaric, who is a senior pre-sales solutions engineer from Atlassian. We have Loren Zadecky, who is SVP, head of solutions consultant group at KeyBank. We have David Friedland, senior manager of pre-sales engineering at Everbridge. We have Justin Simon, director of sales digital go-to-market at SAP Concur. Mike Shedd, senior regional sales executive at SAP Concur. And Erin McDaniel, an account executive from SAP Concur. So one quick reminder, as we get ready to start this panel, go ahead and use the Q&A box on the right. And with that, I will stop my share and we will get into this. So we have some questions that were preloaded before this, so I want to kick it off here. And so we're talking about, the AE-SE relationship and how they work together, how they don't work together. So I want to start with, we'll go in this order: Julia, Loren, then Justin, and David. First question is, what have you observed to be the biggest hindrances to successful collaboration between sales and pre-sales?
So from my point of view, the biggest one is probably the alignment. So the key is the relationship between the SE and AE. So if you don't have this alignment, if you don't have the mutual understanding of the roles and responsibilities, this might play not well for you and probably also for your deal. If the relationship is not working, then your customer will feel it definitely, and your opportunities will suffer from it again. So from my perspective, one that is most important, at least for me, is really the relationship, the trust. So can you trust your AE or your SE to address certain questions? Can you play as a team? Can you do you have the responsibilities clear between the roles and the topics that or accountability? What is EA is accountable and responsible for, and the same for SE.
Very cool. Loren, you're up.
Yeah, from my perspective, obviously, where Julie is going, 100% correct. And then I think further, things fall down when this relationship, this partnership is seen as transactional. I am an AE, I come in, I set you up, and then I move out of the way and let you do your thing. I think it's best when both parties sort of own the outcome of trying to drive towards or fully engaged in the conversation. I don't want an AE doing it. Expert and step out. You know, when it's transactional like that, it just doesn't work.
Very cool. And Justin and David, let's have you chime in on this one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Julia and Loren brought up some really good points. Number one, alignment, making sure that the SC and the AE are aligned on the deal, aligned on the customer's expectations, aligned on next steps, aligned on what the customer's looking to see. Of course, that's key. And owning the outcome is also key. And making sure that all parties understand what they play, the role they play, and owning that outcome. I think what hinders some of the most successful relationships between SEs and AEs are when an AE provides unqualified deals, maybe bad notes, lack of notes, or regular collaboration, whether it be one-on-one, stress in between calls with customers. Those are some of the key areas where that relationship is built. And if we don't have those open lines, we often see hindrances in the success of the AE and of the solutions consultant or engineer.
And I absolutely agree with kind of everything that's been said before. And in my head, it's almost bucketing everything in being able to kind of create a culture specifically to become trusted co-pilots together. It's not like an adversarial relationship between sales engineers and you have to be able to come in and do those transactional items that you're talking about, which I guess is a way that it could be a strategy to stage gate everything. I'm not sure that I would argue that it would be the most effective way to approach something, but you could really work with them. And I think a good way that we look at this at Everbridge is to really treat the sales and the sellers as our customers, and we're working together to help a mutual goal, so that way we can work together. And if there are things that need to be put in place, we're coming together to understand what and why and how that happens. So we're truly a partnership and a team.
For sure. I love that. I love some of the things that were brought up, you know, not a transactional relationship, alignment, those types of things. Erin and Mike, I'd want to hear from you. How do you achieve that? How do you achieve that alignment and making it not so transactional?
To Justin's earlier point, I think it is absolutely pivotal that we're consistently working and partnering with our SCs, coming from an AE perspective. When we are having those regular touch points, whether or not we're talking about a deal or qualifying or anything like that, we're going to be able to work together more consistently and put together a better, conversation that it's going to be able to be client facing or, prospect facing. So I really like what Justin said there. And to me, that has been a game changer in how I've partnered with my SCs in the past and currently. It just is the deal maker or deal breaker.
Very cool. And Mike, you?
I mean, I think just as to what everyone has said, like partnership and communication is, the foundation of success, and setting clear expectations for what I expect, but also I want my SC to set clear expectations of what they expect from me. And kind of when you have that line of communication open, I think it just creates a better experience, not only for the customer, but also better chances at, winning the opportunity, and just creating a honestly better work environment and not having this adversarial or transactional relationship with your SE. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess part of that, so we have a question that came into the chat that's really related to that. So having that transparency and that openness in the relationship, this is more for the SE side of the house and the AE side. So from the SE side of the house, how many SEs are sharing the details of their calendar with the AE team? And is that a common practice that maybe should be more common?
I can take that. I mean, like from Everbridge's perspective, what we do is we allow the different sellers on my team specifically, about 13 different sales engineers, and for new business and for several different verticals, SLG, etc. And we're not dictating how they manage the relationship with the assigned sellers that they have. They're adults and they're able to kind of manage that. And for the most part, yeah, absolutely. Like they want to have communications, whether it's Slack or it's their calendar. But the point is that like you're paired with this person. It's a partnership, and the whole idea is you're an adult and you can figure out times that can work. And if sharing the calendar makes most sense for you, then that will obviously make it more efficient. And I'd say everyone on my team does.
Okay, very cool. Anyone else want to chime in on this one, on calendar sharing?
So I actually love, so my solutions consultant shares his calendar with me. And I think what really is impactful for me to see on his calendar is a lot of the times people don't understand in the dynamic where we have my solutions consultant support the team of 6 people, but understanding how much work is actually on their plate kind of puts, you want to be cognizant of their time as well. And by the time you're bringing them into the conversation, you want to make sure that you've qualified the prospect, very well, that they're in a position to, make a decision and that they're serious. I think what, like I said, the insight by him sharing my calendar with me really, like I said, shed light on making sure that if I'm going to ask for time from him, that it's well worth his time, because he supports so many other people.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And then coming back to, what happens when that collaboration is not so successful. We had a question from Scott come in the Q&A. So let me read it off. It says, what are the ways that you or some of your managers can create or foster an adversarial relations? Basically, what do you want to avoid most of all that's going to create that, that conflict? So let's have Julia and Justin start us off on this one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the leadership, both leaderships, the solutions engineer or sales engineer and AE leadership play a big role in making this relationship possible or making it better. In my company, our leadership is very aligned. And we try to align even more on, we do together offsites, we do together retrospectives, so we connect as teams, solutions engineering and sales. So we are one sales, and the leadership can propagate or evangelize this as well in their teams, and try to connect them as much as possible.
Awesome. So go ahead, Loren.
Oh, sorry, Justin. I had to pop out and come back in because anyone who's done a demo when the internet doesn't work knows what that's like. But go ahead, Justin. I'll wait for you to go, and then I'll go.
Yeah, no worries. I think the number one way to create an adversarial relationship here is to assign blame, right? When a deal is lost, whether it be one side or another, to insinuate or point towards one party or the other. I think the ways that you can avoid creating these adversarial relationships or having that is when leadership also gets involved and the leaders are talking, right? So that when you have a regular one-on-one or a monthly one-on-one with the leaders of the SE or SC and being on the same page and sharing feedback candidly, right? One thing that we try to do at least on my team at Concur is try to record some demonstrations, right? So we can go back and we can talk about and we can share feedback on both sides. What this allows us to do is create trust and avoid some of the the thoughts or some of the things that might cause an adversarial relationship because we're being open. So I think that's one of the key areas that we try to focus on.
Great. Love it. Loren, you're up.
Yeah. So, Julia, I heard you talking about sort of the structure of how you try to bring solution consulting, solution engineering together with sales. When we started solution consulting at KeyBank, it lived in product, and product and sales tend to have an adversarial relationship. After the first few years, I pushed pretty hard to move into business development. And at that point, structurally, we were aligned. There was still some of the good friction between the AEs care about, we have 60 or 70 products. There's a lot to worry about. And solution consultants could have small parts of that. So you had some of that friction about solution consultants caring about, this specific product versus the AE just trying to hit their bigger goal through multiple products. That's okay. But we were still aligned on strategic objectives for the year, things like that. It wasn't you're part of product, we're part of sales. It was we're together. You are an important support function to the account executives. So let's do this together. And it's turned out to be it's almost a growth multiplier for us once we did that.
I love that. That's so great. The communication, the goal setting, the alignment on all of those objectives it seems so crucial. I mean, it's almost the longer I am at Consensus and the more I get into sales engineering, I've almost viewed the AEST relationship almost like a marriage. It's you have to communicate, you have to align, you have to be there and fostering each other and on the same page at all times, because if not, it can go disastrously wrong. And on that, one of those adversarial things that can come in, that's in the next question that came into the Q&A, it is related to compensation, which I know can be a soft spot for a lot of people on both sides of the house. So I'm interested to hear your guys' perspective. It says, how connected should an AE and SE be with regards to compensation? Should the SE's quota be tied to that of the AE, the portfolio, the line of business? What are some of the best practices for aligning SE compensation to AE performance and vice versa? So I'll open that up to you guys.
I'll jump in from the sales, kind of from the sales side here. I think that, and I don't know, in terms of how the comp should be actually created in alignment, but I think there should be a complete understanding between the SE and the sales executive on how compensation works, generally speaking, right? What each party is compensated on and what we're going to get the most value out of, and what the customer will also get the most value out of, so that when we're working towards a goal, everybody can be in alignment. And I think that that's key to understanding just at the very base level, and key to that, Garrett, what you referred to as that marriage between the two parties, having an understanding of how each party functions, how they get paid, how they get compensated, I think is helpful and critical to the relationship.
For sure. Mike, you look like you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, the relationship I have with my solutions consultant is they're probably the single most important aspect, that resource that I have at my disposal to win a deal. And this might be unpopular in the grand scheme of things, but I do think that there should be alignment between my success and their success, because it is a marriage, and it's just how would you say, if the goals aren't aligned, then are we working towards the same thing?
Great comment.
In our organization, it's a little different, probably because the breadth of it. Like I said, we have 60 or 70 products that an account executive could sell in key payments. You have receivables, payables, you have deposits. Right now, if you know anything about banking and SVB and all of that, deposits are a big deal. So we have to understand that, as a solution consulting group, we have to understand their motivations and how they look to reach their goal. Our goals aren't aligned the same way. They're more product focused because we have a suite of products that any one solution consultant or one part of the solution consulting team cares about. So I said before, the concept of good friction, I think we've got good friction because we are paid based on our product, reaching our product sales goals. They're compensated reaching their total sales goals, which again could be across any products. But having that good friction where we want to sell this set of solutions, we see a lot of opportunities for it, forces the solution consultant into the mix. They have to fight for the time. They have to do what they can do. And ultimately, it helps get the client what they need. So I think there is some, it can't be perfectly aligned in our org. It's just not how it works, but there's overlap. And it's good for both parties to understand, like what Justin said, it's good for both parties to understand where the other is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add the SE perspective to this, I used to work in a company where sales engineers were part of sales organization. And I really think that the compensation model is depending on how you are organized internally. So what's your structure, as Loren said, and in the organization where SE are part of the sales organization, we had also revenue goals, we SEs. And because we support not one EA, right, or AE, we support several of them, then we support each other. If someone is off, out of office on PTO, then you support another colleague probably. So our compensation was tied to the regional revenue. And this worked perfectly because you have your region, you work as a region, as a team together with your AEs. And it was a good model. Now in my current company, there is different organizations. Pre-sales and sales are not under sales organization. That's why it's different here. So it's really depending on how you're organized, what makes sense, what are your KPIs as well. As Loren said, SEs may have different KPIs, different OKRs, etc. So how are you measured? And really, it depends.
Yeah, it sounds like where you come together, organizationally, plays into a huge factor. That's what Art is saying in the chat here too. So sometimes you align too high up the chain, and so it's hard to measure and align perfectly on the goals and that compensation rolling with it. One question that we've got here, and this is kind of a two-parter, right? Because we're going to go on either side. What is the one thing that AEs wish SEs understood about their role, and vice versa? Was one thing that you guys know or have seen that SEs wish AEs understood about their role? So let's go David and Erin, and then we'll open it up to the rest of you.
I would say if we had one thing to focus on is that we have a shared goal to work together to be able to help the customer solve whatever business problem they have. And like in any relationship, there are going to be disagreements. We're not going to hear the same things, and that it's okay. And that we can approach it together from a point of understanding that we should have different perspectives and that we should allow for the open dissent. It shouldn't be in front of the customer, and we should have kind of scheduled meetings and time frames before and afterwards where we have these touch points where if it does have dissent, which is healthy, that there's an opportunity for that it's scheduled, it's planned in advance, and it's not an attack on the person. It's how can we help advance this?
Very much.
I love what you just said there. Yeah, I love what you just said there, David. I think that's a great summary. And to add to that a little bit, I think it's also really important to focus on the problem solving specifically and not necessarily come in from a product pitch perspective. So though you've learned maybe what a pitch is like on the SC side of things, we're coming in to solve a lot of times a very specific problem. We don't have to overshare. We're here to really help them hone in on how we can make that one thing or those few things better. And though maybe sometimes the products can do way more, we're zeroing in on what really matters to the client or the prospect, not so much, hey, look how amazing our product is.
Wonderful. Anyone else before we move on to the next one?
I could add perhaps to what was already said, the one thing that EAs should know perhaps or understand about SEs. From my experience, sometimes EAs are only involving pre-sales in the conversation if there is anything technical to discuss. And often we hear there is nothing technical to discuss yet. There is no demo scheduled yet. so I will leave you out of the conversation. And then they involve pre-sales as if they need someone to answer technical questions, or in strategic meetings, for example, usually or often, not everywhere, I'm not saying it's with everyone, but sometimes EAs tend to not to invite pre-sales if they don't feel that they are ready for a strategical discussion, or they think pre-sales. So perhaps it's a little bit misunderstanding about the role, or seniority might play a role as well. But one thing that I always try to communicate to my AEs is that we pre-sales can be strategic. So we can participate, we can bring value also to strategical conversations, because we should be able, on a certain level of seniority, should be able to talk strategically about the company strategy, about the product strategy. We know how the customer is working and functioning, and we really try to understand it so we can shape solutions. So please invite us, involve us in those strategic conversations, because we can, we should, and we are able, we are capable of it.
Yeah, honestly, information and color is required for a solution consultant to be able to do what a solution consultant or a solution engineer can do. Without the depth of the relationship, without the color about the people you're going to walk into and walk into the room and talk to, without understanding the company background, all of those things, it turns us into transactional people. And I hear there's a company where you could just send demos if that's all you are going to do. You don't need to be there in the room. So if that's the case, if that exists, then bring us in earlier. I'm 100% in line with you there, Julia. I mean, that is so critical. We don't want to do the AE's job, but the more we know, the more we can actually work with the AE to build the right solution for the client.
Definitely. Love it. Awesome. Great stuff about the communication, about the alignment, continuing those points here. So we had one come in. It's been upvoted a couple of times. So this is a bit of a situational question. So let's dive in. How would you recommend navigating a conversation around closing a deal with a client who isn't ideal? So maybe they're not your ICP. Maybe they don't fit the mold of what you generally sell. Says often SEs are devil's advocate and question how successful the customer will be, but we often think of the friction caused by telling the AE maybe that we don't want to close the deal.
I can approach this. I think I want to take it a little bit higher away from just that one question, because if that question is coming up, then I would propose the response is like, what is the relationship between the sales engineering leadership and the leadership of the sales organization? Because it's so tantamount to be able to have one-on-one communications where we're openly speaking with them about shared objectives. So understanding like what their top priorities are, what their opportunities are, what's working, what's not working, what's new from the sales engineering side, any updates on new initiatives, anything new from the staff or sales engineering side. Like there's a whole slew of things that allow for us to be able to have a regular cadence for these conversations, which then builds the trust. So then the sales engineers are then having these same conversations with the sellers too as well. So it's being kind of top down. And if the deal itself doesn't make sense for a myriad of reasons, I would hope that like the sellers would want to be able to like and trust the relationship that they have with their SE, because there's probably got to be a good reason. If there's not, then hash it out. But there needs to be that, again, the communication and trust built to be able to facilitate that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and what also sorry, David, you answered another question where you said exactly this: the diversity of opinions should be heard and should be evaluated. So if you have the trustful relationship to talk openly with your EA, you can handle the situation, but you need to build this trust first. If your AE, I say sometimes EA because that's the wording in my company currently, AE. So if they trust you, they would listen to you. If they don't trust you, they would just ignore you. So it's human relationship, basically. Yeah.
But Erin was going to chime in, but I was going to come to her anyway. But you really need to hit that quota, right? You got to hit that quota. And so how do you approach that, Erin, if the customer isn't ideal and that conversation is happening now?
I've been in this position before. I will say I work on the client side of the business just to help add some color to this picture too. At the end of the day, you can't be that quota hungry. If they're not a fit, it's not going to work in the long term. In our company, I can tell you they will claw it back from us, right? There's always a recovery process out there. So it's not going to be helpful to the client. It's not going to be helpful to you in the long term. It's a bad deal. So we're trying to avoid those actively anyway. And to Julia's point, I'm lucky enough to have a really good working relationship with my SC, and I do trust him. So when he's telling me, hey, Erin, this is not a fit for this client, that's totally fine. Maybe there's something else smaller that's a fit. It's a working conversation at all times. I'm actually out there looking for my SC's advice because he is the expert when it comes to the technical functionality. And that's just me personally. I know that's not true for every AE that you run into, but I've been there. I believe my SC in this case. I'm lucky to have a good relationship with them.
For SE, an advice probably to speak up. Really, if you think there is a deal breaker or anything critical, don't think that it's not important or your AE wouldn't listen anyway. It should be an open discussion, and just to speak up, bring it up if you have any concerns about the deal, and it needs to be solved as a team.
And I would add to that, talking from the sales side, and if you're in the process and you're so deep in, and this is still, this comes up in the conversation that you have the concerns like this, share it with the customer tactfully. Even if they want to, proceed forward and you don't think that that's going to be in their best interest, sharing that and giving that level of candor can save them and save yourself a lot of pain down the road. And what's critical when you're looking at that is also considering, what are we solving here? And are we actually solving their problems and their challenges, or are we just putting a Band-Aid on it for right now? So I think that those are two critical things to consider as you work with a situation like this.
Definitely. Love the answers. Love it. Love the talk about candor too. I love that. It's how you build better trust. So next question comes from Kavita, and it says, what are some ways to grow and evolve relationships between AEs and SCs in a period of change? So where there's a lot of transition, people are leaving, there are new hires, maybe there's an operational or organizational change. How do you use those situations to evolve those relationships?
I can start perhaps. There is a concept of teaming, and the name it's called team clock. I don't know if you've heard about it. So 4 stages of team building, and the first stage is getting to know each other. I don't remember the name exactly, but just to get familiar with each other. And the second stage is storming, and the third stage is norming, and the fourth is performing. So before you are going to perform, in some point in time, you will come into the storming stage. And I think this kind of change, where you experience something difficult, a difficult situation together, like restructuring or people go, change is a stressful situation for everyone. So it's a chance for you to come closer together, to be open to each other, to share emotions, and just leave this storming phase through this storming phase to come to the norming phase. Yeah, I see it as a chance, really, but it needs to be handled properly. If you yeah, if you don't manage it properly, emotions play a role here in such a situation, I can imagine. So it can go wrong if you don't team up and be open with each other, and don't be scared to share emotions, how you feel, and just to open up and support each other.
I would add to that too as well, that I think in every opportunity, or every constraint has an opportunity for growth, I think is really the mindset that I kind of approach it from. And like when you see kind of chaos ensuing around you, the only thing that I'm really able to focus on are things that are within my control. And so if there are challenges that are happening in the organization that are outside of your control, the question that we typically would ask would be, okay, well, what can we do to be able to best help the sales organization and the sellers? So what is the one key thing that's really going to make the biggest impact on being able to mitigate or assist with being able to help in the sales cycle, whether that be with sales enablement, whether that be with training, whether that be whatever it is. I mean, I think it's probably going a little bit beyond just the standard demo. It's almost like a bank, like we're depositing money into the bank to build the relationship, so that way we can have and earn the right to have these more difficult conversations later down the line. You're building a relationship.
Yeah, one of the things, so this is probably like a specific point when there's turmoil, but when we see AE turnover, one of the things I've told the team is you need to get out in front of the new AEs right away. Like, you can help them navigate the organization. You can help them understand the support function that maybe they didn't have in another organization. And you can be that trusted advisor immediately. And expansive, to your point, David, this isn't about like, hey, I'm your person to go do a demo. No, it's let me help you understand where we are, what we're driving, what are some of the key things we care about. You've heard from your boss, but let me tell you like my perspective. Making sure the solution consultants or SEs are embedded in certain teams helps that a lot, even more so. But like, I kind of call it fresh meat. I'm like, look, this is your chance. You can turn this person into an SC believer immediately if you give them that support. So using that turmoil to your benefit is worth it.
Definitely. We've seen this SC side of the house. Now let's hear from Justin, Erin, and Mike. What on the sales side of the house, how do you guys want to navigate that change better, or the best way that you've seen change navigated for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise to anybody here that we've gone through some tough times, I think, with tech and with kind of the environment that's out there right now. And some of the things that I found to kind of continue to foster and build that relationship, other than being radically candid, is also being extremely inclusive, right? Bringing in these times of change is bringing into David's point, to Julia's point, coming together, coming closer in as opposed to going further out, being human, asking how people are doing, including them in meetings, really calling out when you see something that maybe people aren't feeling right. And as a leader, that's my job, both for my team, but also for the SCs that support my organization, right? To make sure as we're going through this turmoil that we pull closer together as opposed to go further apart and, deal with some of the emotions and feelings that we're going through on our own. So I think some of the key things are communication, right? Humanizing yourself as much as possible, spending more time together, being inclusive, including the SC or AE, vice versa, in the team chain on text message, right? So everybody can be part of the go forward path, and can get through those times and feel like they're all part of the team working towards the same goal.
And to expand on that a little bit further, I think it really also comes down to having a little bit of humility. So, we're going to make mistakes as AEs. SCs are going to make mistakes, especially if they're coming in new into seat. It happens. Taking ownership of that and trying not to get defensive and saying, hey, you know what? I know I made an error there. Here's how we're going to work forward. Accepting that feedback mutually from each other, especially in a brand new working partnership, is so important and will lead to, that's how you get to success together.
Definitely. Take us home, Mike. How do you feel about it?
I took away all this great advice from everyone here. I've been blessed to have the same solutions consultant for 3 years since I started, so I've never actually had to experience or go through the change for the related to the question. But I mean, the relationship I have with my SE is, I mean, first he's a friend and then he's an SE. That's, you know, the foundation of any good working relationship is getting to know somebody on a personal level. And once you understand who they are as a person, everything can kind of just flourish from there. But like I said, I've been blessed with one SE my entire career. So
definitely. Well, cherish that SE then.
yeah, no, I do. I let him know every day I appreciate him.
Very good. And that leads to you know, another question that's been asked here, and we've touched on it a lot, but let's think of ways that haven't answered this, is building that relationship and fostering partnership and that collaboration. So I'm interested to see how that works at the leadership level and at the individual contributor level. So go ahead.
So what we do the offsites together. I think that's important to have off work, so off virtual, off screen time, just to connect better face to face as a team. And it might be the account team, so the team AE, SE, EDR, or etc., or the whole region team, or the whole SE and AE team. Important is that you can connect, you can learn from each other on your perspectives, on your priorities, to have a team event, I don't know, just to build this relationship that is not tied to opportunities, but on the personal level. Plus,
I love that. You know, human first, SE and AE after. I love that. That's what Mike had said earlier.
And the usual, like doing retrospectives, giving feedback is very important to foster the relationship.
I know from the individual. Oh, go ahead, David.
Oh, it's fine. Go ahead, Erin.
Quickly, from the individual contributor side, much to what Julia is saying here, my SC and I have 10-minute coffee connects once every other week. The purpose of that is absolutely not to talk work. We're just catching up on life. I want to know when his baby's due, you know, all of those things that are going on. We're just talking about our personal lives. That way we're in tune with what is actually going on, so that if something does come up and something does change, you know, we're not going to feel as much resentment maybe towards that person for having to shift their schedule around, because we understand, hey, you've got 3 kids, your personal life is crazy. It's so important for us to understand each other on that level and have designated time to talk about those things, rather than saying, oh, we're going to lead into work here. We truly have separate meetings set aside for those, you know, personal connections. And that's been really helpful for us.
Definitely. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think clear roles and communication and definitions of who's doing what's really important for us, because they're going to be differing levels of experience of sellers and SEs and in their journey with respect to the product or products that are being sold, and making sure that like you understand, maybe having like a safe word, for example, if the SE goes off track, what that's going to be, hey, it's raining outside, like, and the SE knows to stop, and that means to kind of pivot and let the seller do it. But then how far should the SE push it if you have SEs that are trained on MEDPIC and Sandler, and like where is that line, and what is the comfort level, and really having that understanding so you can play off of each other to really understand how to move the deal forward.
I think that there's the way that I thought about trying to reorg the solution consultant group here to foster the relationships better were to try to align to how the AE organization was built. So solution consultants are aligned to a certain region. That way the sort of teacher-student ratio, and you can figure out what a teacher and what a student is in that ratio, depending on what your role is. Depending on, like, try to make that ratio smaller. So the solution consultant ultimately gets embedded in a regional team. And what that means is they can take the time to have the 10-minute coffee breaks. They are invited to all of the events that the AEs do from a team perspective. They also have the SE team, and they do their own thing, but we've just reorged so that they are tight enough. They are seen as part of the team. So they're just again, we use the word embedded. They're embedded in everything that regional AE team does, and that just helps foster it. And I think that answers a question that someone else asked more recently about, like, how do you align the AESCs, like, how do you align an SC to opportunity? That's kind of how we've done it. It's just helped us be better partners.
Loren, we've done it the same way. We do it the same way at Concur, and it allows you to be that unified front, that team where I have biweekly one-on-ones with my 2 solutions consultants, and it allows us to all get on the same page during that time for the entire region, but also us to be our own unified team, right, internally, as opposed to this one SC covering all these different teams. Now, it's not always perfect. We do have a little bit of overlap, but that is one thing that I didn't mention earlier. So thanks for bringing it up. That is critical, at least to the success in some of our engagements, is that we have that ability to build that capacity.
Yep,
for sure. All right, we're coming up here. We got a couple more questions before we run out of time. So this one comes from our good friend Art Fromm. It says, what is sales enablement doing to help bridge the SE-AE bridge? Or what would you like them to do for you? So the role of sales enablement in all this.
So we just have built out our go-to-market and sales enablement group in payments here at Key. And Art, I'm from Pittsburgh too, so nice to see you. It was critical because we were having solution consultants building decks and doing things like that. And it was taking away their time from doing what they can do best. And on the other side, you have the same with the AEs, right? They were having to do a lot of the things that a traditional go-to-market or sales enablement group could do to build structure around, like, the materials we take and things like to the client and things like that. When you've got all those parties trying to do stuff off the side of their desk, it's never as good as it could be, and it takes them away from doing what they do best. So that newer sales enablement and go-to-market group has been so critical, especially now, like you said, Justin, we're all a little leaner these days. We need that kind of support so that we can reach further than we have in previous years.
Just to riff off what Loren said, same thing, and something that David had referred to is our sales enablement team has done a really good job of bridging the gap with Sandler, which is what we're using now, with both our group in sales and the SCs, so that when we go into these calls, we have a shared understanding of the language, terminology, kind of what direction we're headed, so that we don't get into situations where we're not speaking the same language and we have that additional friction. So that's kind of what our enablement team has done a good job in playing the role of.
Yeah, I see sales enablement as really the structure, the scale, the ownership, and kind of enforcement of all of the kind of enablement moving forward.
Very good. Love it. And that brings us to Scott's question here. How do account assignments work at your firms? Do you have dedicated AESE relationships or more round robin based on SE specialties? And then what are the pros and cons with relation to that, and how it's going to impact variable compensation?
In our company, we have a dedicated relationships. So we have our ratios, we have our pairings. I think that's the best way to handle opportunities to close deals, because you have really one dedicated AE or SE who you work for, like Erin for multiple years, or like Mike for 4-6 years, I don't know. You know the person, you have the relationship, this deep relationship. That's why you can be more successful, and you are from the beginning on until the closing deal, you are the solely SE, so to say. So you really have the time to get to know the customer and to understand the whole complete deal. The downside of that from the SE perspective might be the workload, right? Because you have your ratios, and depending on how successful your AEs are currently, it might be that much or it might be that much. So it's hard to predict, is my ratio right at this moment? It might be fine in the middle of the year, but it might be very loaded at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter where you close, right? That's why it's a kind of juggling the efforts of SEs. But with my AEs at least, they know my workload, and we try to juggle it or to handle it, so it's okay for me. And I shout out loud if I am overloaded, and they know that, and they can value my time as well. And if I'm free, I say, yeah, I'm totally in. Put me in. All fine. We have the rotation. We have the rotation method for AEs who are not paired yet. So we have a lot of new ones, and we have a lot of new SEs who are onboarding currently, but we have AEs who are not paired yet. And for that purpose, we have the so-called queue, where they can request SE. It's a workaround, and I would say I wouldn't recommend this kind of engagements. Of course, on the one hand, one side, you can handle the capacity. So someone who is free right now can just pick up a ticket, go into the meeting or into the opportunity, and then go out. But the downside is that you are not really committed, so you are not fully in this opportunity. You don't really work closely with the AE. You are not very close to the customer because you are jumping in and out. That's the downside of that. And I've heard also from my AEs, from their experience from the past companies, they had this kind of rotation, and it did not work well. But I'm sure my colleagues here can share more on that from the AE side as well.
From the AE side, I would agree. The round robin's difficult. When my SC is out of office, I honestly just try and work around it as much as I can. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of other SCs that I had previous relationships with. So Mike, I've been through, I think, 4 different SCs who I partnered with now. Sometimes I can rely on them to backfill, and they do know me, and we know how to work well together. So we're fortunate to have that as a backup plan. But typically at Concur, we do have SCs assigned to dedicated reps, and they have the full scope of product knowledge as much as they can. If they don't know the answer, they're really, really resourceful. So that's our purpose and goal in partnering at Concur. We do try to do that relationship where I think it's, and Justin, you may be able to speak to this a little better. I think it's like 1 SC to maybe 8 to 13 reps roughly. And it works out pretty well. It really does make us value their time. We've got to make sure we're planning in advance and being very strategic about when we take meetings and what meetings we do take, making sure they're qualified, but not beyond qualified. We try and bring them in at the discovery phase rather than the demo phase for the most part.
And
I totally, I was just gonna say one other piece, like I totally agree with that. And one of the other challenges from that pooled model too, that when we used to have a pooled model, which we switched away from, and we now do kind of the same thing as Erin and Julia, is cherry picking too as well. So some of the SEs will, you kind of have to antagonize them, and you're kind of bugging them and playing like a parent, be like, pick this up, pick this up, pick this up, pick this up. And that just, it wasn't very conducive for being able to kind of get the best results and having everyone aligned in addition to what they're saying.
So I think we're sort of in consensus. Sorry, I had to do it. That sort of the aligning to groups or aligning to a set number of AEs makes sense. The only I'll be the wet blanket here and say that the one call out is when you're running the team and you're trying to develop people and give them exposure, sometimes they get locked into that team. So it takes constant thought from the management team to say, okay, this person's killing it over here. if we're not careful, they'll just be there forever. Like, how do we expose them to this thing over here or this group over here? There has to be sort of structure to make sure you do that. I still believe wholly that, this one to many, not pool model makes sense, but it's just a call out to make sure that if you're management, you're thinking about it. And if you are an SC, you're owning your development too and saying, hey, this is going great. What can I do to get exposed to leadership or that group over there or that product set? It's an important thing to just keep in mind.
Definitely. And with that, I think we're going to round it out there. This has been an amazing panel. Lots of great analogies from, banking terms and marriage analogies and use of the word consensus outside of talking about the product. Always love it. I know that my usage of that word has gone up since working here. But we've been thoroughly enlightened. And so I truly appreciate you guys' time, your expertise, and the dedication you've given to this. I will share a couple more slides here just for housekeeping as we end the session. All right. So as we end the session, we want to remind everyone that we are doing some gamification here at DEMOFEST. So if you find the session surveys for feedback, if you fill that out, the more surveys you fill out, the more points you get and the more chances you get at winning some of our awesome prizes that are going to be happening tomorrow, I believe. DEMOFEST X is coming to a city near you. Like our good friend Willie Nelson, we can't get back on the road again. We had a really good time over the last year introducing more intimate live in-person DEMOFEST sessions in San Francisco, London, and Salt Lake. And we can't wait to go back to London. We're going to go to Dublin and also New York City later this year. So if you go to demofest.com, you can register for those events. You can also find that in the docs tab for your screen. We encourage you to stop by our expo hall, visit some of our premier partners of DEMOFEST. As a reminder, there's no transfer of money involved in this. No one is paid for these sessions. No one paid to be part of this. So all of our partners have gone above and beyond the call of duty to make their contributions memorable and to make these, sessions like these so wonderful. So we truly are appreciative of them. In the next couple minutes, you're going to be joining your next sessions. So if you're in this track right now, you'll be pushed immediately to the next session that's assigned to this track. If you want to go to your agenda tab, you can manage that from there, and you can go and switch between sessions at free will. With that, we are so grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us for DEMOFEST, and thank you for joining us for this session on the AE-SE relationship. We hope that you have found it valuable. I sure have, and we hope to see you in our next session soon.